The unprecedented pace of disruption and uncertainty makes leadership more relevant today than ever before. It is not position or power, but your leadership skills that help you to think in unique, creative ways. When faced with a crisis, a leader is forced to think and make critical decisions. A leader who empowers a team and gives the employees accountability increases the effectiveness of an organization. John Maxwell says that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Warren Bennis says leadership is the capacity to turn vision into reality. And Bill Gates says, as we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others. Today, I have the honor of welcoming a leader who wears many hats. Adriana is a productivity specialist, TEDx speaker, facilitator, coach, and author of the Spark Shift series, the Visual Vision Statement Workbook, personal and business editions. As president of Cornerstone Dynamics, Adriana Girdler is one of Canada's prominent business productivity specialists, helping both individuals and businesses do what they do, only better. She is a certified master black belt Lean Six Sigma with over 20 years experience improving how companies work. She also holds both PMP and CET designations. She has been interviewed in the Globe and Mail, is a Huffington Post contributor, and has been featured in numerous industry magazines. On New Talk 1010, Sirius XM, Global News, and 680 News. Adriana loves what she does and is passionate about improvement and efficiency in both people and organization. Welcome to this interview, Adriana.
Thank you so much, Saji, for inviting me. I really am excited about this.
Thank you. So the first question that I want to ask to begin is, what do you think are the 3 traits that a leader or a project manager should have to thrive in a disruptive economy?
It's a really good question, because I think most individuals would go to the typical technical stuff, right? Like you should have your designation, you should have the ability to, do all of your paperwork, you should have like all of that sort of what we think is normal or what we think is a given. But it really, whether it's a disruptive state or a non-disruptive state, there's some really key things that are critical to ensure that, again, you're not just a project manager, you're a leader. You're a leader of people. You're a leader of people who do not report into you. That's even more difficult, right? How do you motivate people who have managers that they report into, have other obligations too? Yours is just one of them. And how do you lead? So that's what I love about project management, because I think project managers do make amazing leaders, because they have so many other roadblocks that they have to remove in order to really press forward. And I think some of the traits may be a little bit more different than people thought of. I think the first one is a real strong intuitive nature. You have to really be able to kind of go with your gut feel with things. Being an engineer, doing productivity, Lean Six Sigma, I'm very data driven, but I find it was my intuitiveness that really has gotten me more, because you can pick up on things that the data may say it's normal, but there's something behind there. It's an itch. That's not right. So I think intuitiveness is critical. I think in business, we don't give it enough credit. And anyone, even the individuals the leaders that you quoted in the beginning of the segment, they all talk very heavily on the power of intuition. And so I think it's something that we have to look at more and embrace more, and really listen to project managers and other leaders who say, you know what, my intuition is telling me this, and we shouldn't just sweep it under the rug. So that to me is the first critical trait that all leaders and project managers should have, for sure. And then the other two, I guess I should finish up the question. The other two, creativity. I think that's really important. We're seeing more and more in this day and age where artificial intelligence is taking over positions that normally were done by individuals because there's an algorithm associated to the work that they're doing. So, you know, you don't, in fact, it was just, I just read in the paper today, MSN, Microsoft, who purchased MSN, just let go a lot of their editors. And why? Because they're putting an artificial intelligence to take that over. So creativity, I think, is something that is unique to humans, and it's something that we should not lose sight of. And as a project manager, and especially a leader, the creativity, how you come to any issue, problem, or even looking at a project, looking at things in a creative way is going to be really, really critical. And I think understand that we're all creative. I think a lot of individuals feel they're not creative, but we all have creativity in us. And then the third thing, which I think it can be difficult for people, is courage. Courage to speak up when needing to speak up. But you can do it in a very respectful, professional manner. But courage, I think, is really critical because you're when you're a leader and you're doing project management work, there are times that your intuition tells you you should be doing this. You're getting pressure from senior executives to do it, or even pressure from your customers. And you need to have the courage to speak up and not just go with the flow for the sake of going with the flow. So I'd say intuition, your creativity, and courage are the three critical traits that we're going to see more and more coming into play. That distinguishes you from other individuals and really highlights your leadership abilities for sure in project management or in any role, really.
Interesting 3 points, intuition, creativity, and courage. We come to the second question. How does a leader respond when there is a crisis? Well, how is he different from a normal person?
Well, I'm hoping that leader has a crisis plan because then they'll just follow it. No, but we joke about that because I think as project managers, it's all risk planning, right? And I think crisis situations will always occur. You're never not going to have a crisis situation. It's, did you plan for it properly? And I think I come across this a lot with my clients. I talk about risk management and us doing the risk assessments and all of that stuff. And I get pushback all the time. It's like, well, do we really need to do that? Yes, you really need to do it because something's going to happen and you wish you at least would have had some sort of even a high level contingency or mitigation plan. It doesn't have to be detailed, and you can't plan for everything, but at least things that you think are going to have a high probability, you can at least put that in place. And I think that's really important, is to actually do the pre-work prior to the crisis even happening, so you have something to fall back on. Because otherwise, what I find and see a lot, people are reacting, and sometimes that reaction is not good enough, or they're too slow in their response. But then another part of that is when the crisis does occur, calmness. You have to show calmness. You can't, unfortunately, if you show your own fear, let me clarify that. It's okay to be fearful. It's okay to have empathy of the situation and what's going on. But when you're in a leadership position, you also have to lead and show calmness and lead by example. So, calmness is really important. You can still have compassion and you can still have empathy for what's going on in any crisis situation, but you need to have everyone breathe and come to a calm space so that you can truly think and have your prefrontal cortex kick in and give you the right information. Otherwise, your amygdala, which is in our brain, is our stress, our flight and flight syndrome, starts to kick in, and we don't make good decisions, right? So
yeah, in a moment of haste, if you take decisions in haste, probably may not be good. Yeah,
absolutely.
Now we come about taking care of a team, a leader of a team. How do you keep your team motivated and connected during
it's a good question, because It depends on the scenario and situation you're in. Like, you know, right now we have COVID, right, going on, a pandemic. Nobody is live anymore. We're all in these virtual settings, and as blessed as we are to have this technology, and as blessed as we are to still have the ability to continue doing work and still connecting with individuals like this, I have to say I'm missing the human element of actually being live in a meeting setting or being able to talk to someone face to face or something. So, you know, the connectivity part, like in a COVID pandemic situation, I have constant connections with my team, constantly asking them how they're doing, having a lot more flexibility for them, right? You know, giving them a little more leeway so that they can ensure that their needs are being met. And then when there's a non-COVID situation and we're together, it's really bringing people together. That's what it is. And even just talking on a human level, it doesn't even have to be on a professional level. It's just connecting, going, hey, how are you doing? Guess what? I have your back. I have your back. Let's do this together. And, you know, I just want to see how things are going. And that's where your intuition comes in, right? Because you can pick up on how people are feeling. So.
Nice. And how do you support them? What type of support can you give them during these times?
I'm a firm believer, and maybe this is my project management background. I will never be the roadblock, ever. And I don't know how many times I come across leaders and organizations who are the roadblock. So the success of my organization and the client work that we do is all in regards to my team. So I got to set my team up for success. So I always, no matter how busy I am, I always say, if you need something from me and you cannot proceed, you need to let me know, because I won't know that I'm your roadblock. So if you need an answer, we need to review something. So to me, their success is my client's success. So I will ensure that they have everything they need from me so that they can do what they do, which is doing a great job, right? And ensuring the needs of our customers are being met. And I find there's a lot of people in management leadership type positions who actually don't do that. And they kind of have an inflated ego, and their inflated ego relates to them, oh, you have to wait because I'm really important doing this. When they don't realize that it's not about ego, it's about service. And you're serving, whether it's your organizational goals, the customer, whatever it may be, but you're now impeding that service without realizing you're impeding it because your ego is too big. It's a very interesting issue, and I see a lot of it. I know you probably do too.
Yeah, sorry. If you look back on your years of service, what do you think is one of the big challenges that you have faced as a project manager, as a leader?
That's a good question. It's interesting because I would say it's not, because I really feel, and I think this is age and wisdom and all that other stuff, where I am now in my career and as an individual, I would never trade my wisdom for youth, ever, ever. The wisdom I have now provides me with so much joy and knowledge and just great experiences, because I can go upon my past experiences. When I look back, it's my youth, my beginning stages of being a project manager, not knowing about people's hidden agendas, and not knowing how to deal with it. And so I would say that was probably the biggest roadblock or challenge that I faced, because here I was, you know, when I was much younger, very optimistic, and I'm still very optimistic, by the way, that's never changed, very positive, all that stuff, but I didn't understand, because I wasn't really connected to the intuition that I have now as I was, you know, when I was younger. And just understanding that, yeah, people have hidden agendas. You got to pick up on that stuff. And you have to have the courage to deal with it, and the creativity, do you see all these traits, and the creativity to how do you, you know, go in and stop those things, right? The courage is key, because I didn't know how to speak up and actually call it for what it was. Now I have no problem. And it's really, and when I do it immediately, it shuts it down and it goes away. And that's, yeah, so that's, I don't have those issues. I don't have those issues now. I did when I was younger, but I learned. I would say that would probably the hidden agendas is you have to pick up on that because that can really derail stuff.
So today, it's entirely possible for me to get interviewed for a role online through Skype, go to and then join work from home and in a virtual setting. So it's becoming a new norm where
Yeah.
the virtual workplace. So how do you lead effectively in a virtual workplace?
I have a personal philosophy on, it's a personal philosophy that I also take into the business world. And businesses do this, but I think we've got to do it better, a better job of it. And that is, if you're leading at all, what is the vision that you have for yourself, for your organization? But I'm not talking about the traditional 30-second elevator speech. We want to make our stakeholders more money, blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about inspiration. We hear and we see that, vision statements ought to be inspirational, but when you come across traditional vision statements, they're not. They're very bland and boring. And actually, I don't even connect with them. So it's like, it's trying to say, okay, if we're now going in a virtual workplace and we know already we're at a disadvantage because we're missing that human connection of physically being in the same room and being able to pick up on someone's energy and going, oh my goodness, you know how you get those connections with people and you can feel the room? It's really difficult to do that in this setting and scenario. It's almost impossible. How do I feel through the electronic world? I see your smile. Like, thank God for video. That's why I make video like mandatory on all my meetings. So there's definitely one tip. Video ought to be on. But you know what? This is where companies really have to take a step back and they go, we now need to inspire people through our words and through our vision. And individuals ought to have the same thing. They should have a personal vision statement to inspire themselves, because now we have to take on more accountability, because we just can't expect, before in the workplace we'd show up, okay, they're trying to connect with me, but we as individuals also have to take that responsibility. And are we aligned with what we want to do and be? And now we have to get everybody aligned and get the right people together.
At the beginning of this year, many companies were taken by surprise when the COVID pandemic struck.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you actually preempt such risks and factor it into your risk management?
That's an interesting question, because I've had this conversation with a couple of people. Actually, we were talking about it because we were saying, well, this is interesting because we had SARS, we had Ebola, we had all of these other pandemic scares, but yet there's a lot of organizations who did not have a pandemic plan, right? They had plans for, if something should happen, we have a secondary location, but they didn't have a pandemic plan. And this is not, I would never point fingers or blame anybody saying, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't think of a pandemic plan. But I think it goes to show, when I think of my own organization, how maybe this is just a philosophy. Like, I already had everything set up. Everyone had laptops. We already had the virtual world. We were already doing all that virtual stuff. I had tons of flexibility for my team. So we're constantly working from home and working from the office. So, because to me, my goal is we just have to get it done. I don't care when you get it done. You just get it done when we have a deadline, right? So if you choose to work at midnight, I'm fine with that, just as long as the quality is there and you get it done by our agreed upon due dates. And I think the organizations that I'm seeing that are hurting a lot are too rigid and too structured, where they have a philosophy, you have 9 to 5, you have to be in the building. There's some organizations I was talking to where they still had desktops, right? They don't have laptops. So, I'm like, what? Is that even possible? So, the flexibility, the agilityness, I think more organizations who are in a very traditional setting, whether that's the finance sector, banking, things of that nature, really have to get into really having more flexibility and realizing that, life is 24/7. By the way, I would never recommend that anyone works 24/7. In fact, work ought to have some structuredness to it. But I have to say, one of the things I do like about, being forced to work from home is I got laundry going on right now as I'm chatting with you. You know how nice that is? Because that's reality. That's reality.
multitasking.
Absolutely.
What do you see as a future for project managers?
I think project managers are going to be solution finders. So project managers are not just here's a project and go execute it. I think you're going to see, and this is where you're going to think to see the value of different types of project managers. If you're very traditional in your project sense, I do recommend to really reevaluate how you think project management should be. Companies now are looking for solutions. They're looking for creativity. They want somebody who's going to think, and I hate this word, out of the box, but not even out of the box, but out of their line, right? Like out of their circle, like they put, oh, here's my responsibility. They want people who think outside of that, who are looking at the vision, who are looking at the mission statement. So it's going to be problem solvers. So, hey, you got this problem, not an issue. I'm going to get a team together, subject matter experts, and we're going to solve the problem for you. So maybe it's not project management, which I think is very boxed in. It's problem solvers, because that's really what projects are. We're solving problems. That's a lot of value now. Okay, yeah. I got to trademark that. We're problems.
Very nice. And we come to our final question. That is, do you have any words of advice for youngsters who wish to take up a career in project management or a leadership role?
Absolutely. Yeah, you know what? I'm never bored in what I do, ever. So, you know, if someone is going into the corporate world and they want to run, you know, and they're like, oh, what should I do? Definitely take a look at project management. Now, I'm also a firm believer, you got to take a look at your values and goals, and you should align those and go into a career that you truly find passion in. And I know that seems slightly cliche, but I'm very blessed. I love what I do. And so I'm constantly, working is not the right word, because I don't feel like I work. I'm constantly thinking and developing and getting new ideas, and I sometimes don't know how to turn it off, right? You know? And based on, but that's a good thing, because I'm never, ever bored. And based on that, it's really cool. It's cool to be aligned with what you love to do. And I would say for anyone young, find out what you love to do, but be open to stuff, experience stuff. Project management is awesome. There's so much to do, different industries. And it's a skill set that you can take up until your retirement years, even outside of it. Even if you open up your own company, there we go. Even if it's awesome. Is all I'm going to say. And you get to meet so many different people, and there's so many cool projects that you get to work on that are really connected with strategy. And if that's the kind of thing you like, you can never go wrong. And then connect that with some sort of technology related skill set, like engineering, and it's awesome.
Yeah. So it was a pleasure speaking to you, and thanks for offering your insights and wisdom on so many of those questions. You answered so many of my questions, and I'm sure many of them who read about your answers will be delighted. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and it was an honor and privilege to do this call with you, Sajeev. So thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. You too.